Welcome to the HFY Tales channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you like the story. Enjoy and take care.
Captain Marcus Steele stepped down from the sleek human shuttle, the metallic ramp clicking softly against the verdant ground of the alien planet. The air was thick with humidity, the scent of exotic flowers mixed with the earthy aroma of the dense jungle that stretched endlessly before him. It was a planet untouched by human hands, one of the first to be encountered by his team on their diplomatic mission to establish peaceful relations with the tribal civilization that called this world home. The mission was simple in theory: initiate contact, engage in negotiations, and learn about the culture of the strange race that lived here. But Marcus had a gnawing feeling in his gut. He had seen the wary looks from the aliens, their cold stares as they observed his every move. The tribal leaders had been hesitant about meeting humans, their customs deeply rooted in ancient beliefs and superstitions. He was not sure what to expect from these creatures, but the warnings were clear. Humanity was viewed as inferior, perhaps even expendable. And yet, Marcus had seen something in their eyes during the first meetings, something that spoke of respect buried beneath centuries of tradition. It was an unsettling dynamic, and one he needed to navigate carefully. "Captain Steele, the delegation is ready," said Lieutenant Maria Thompson, her voice breaking through his thoughts. She handed him a small device, a communication tool that would allow them to stay in touch with the ship and other team members back on Earth. Marcus nodded, the weight of his position settling on his shoulders. The tension in the air was palpable, not just between humans and aliens, but also among the alien tribe members themselves. Their civilization was clearly primitive, yet there was an ancient power in the way they carried themselves. Leading the delegation was S.H. Raza, a tall and imposing female of the tribe, a daughter of their leader. She was regal in her own way, her features sharp and feline, with a reptilian-like sheen to her skin that glimmered under the jungle's rays. Her eyes, a deep amber, tracked Marcus's every movement with both suspicion and something else, something he couldn't place. As she approached, her long, muscular tail swishing behind her, Marcus straightened. Her presence was commanding, and for a moment, he wondered if this alien female might be as formidable as she looked. "You are human?" S.H. Raza asked, her voice low and smooth, though with a hard edge to it. She towered over him by several inches, her posture conveying strength and dominance. Marcus held her gaze. "I am," he said evenly, resisting the urge to look away. His voice, like hers, carried authority, though there was an underlying tension in his chest. "I've come to learn about your people and offer peace." S.H. Raza studied him for a moment longer before nodding, though she didn't seem entirely convinced. "Peace," she repeated as if tasting the word, rolling it over in her mouth. "The humans speak of peace, but your kind are known to be conquerors." Marcus didn't flinch, though he could feel the weight of history pressing against him. He wasn't sure if he should take offense. "We've come to prove otherwise," he said carefully. Her lips curled slightly, a flicker of amusement, or was it disdain, in her expression. She turned away, gesturing for Marcus and his team to follow her. The alien city was built into the jungle itself, a blend of organic structures and massive stone temples that reached skyward, their surfaces covered with vines and foliage. The architecture was both primitive and sophisticated, showcasing the tribe's connection to nature, as well as their ability to harness it. The tension in the air grew thicker as they made their way through the alien city, until they arrived at an open courtyard. There, a large ceremonial altar was set in the center, surrounded by the tribe's warriors and leaders. The tribal chief, S.H. Raza's father, stood tall at the front of the gathering, his eyes narrowing as Marcus and his team approached. "Welcome," the chief's voice boomed, though there was little warmth in it. "It is tradition for humans to witness our ritual. It is your role to prove you are worthy of peace." Marcus's stomach tightened. He had heard rumors of the tribe's customs. Their belief was that humans were weak, inferior, and in their most sacred rituals, humans were often used as symbolic prey, a display of the tribe's dominance. "Of course," Marcus replied, though his voice was tight. "We are honored to witness your traditions." S.H. Raz's gaze flickered toward him once more, and for the first time, Marcus saw something different in her eyes, curiosity. She was not just sizing him up as prey, as the others were. There was something else there, something deeper. It unsettled him, though he did his best not to show it. The ceremony began. A chant rose from the crowd, a rhythmic sound that filled the space with an eerie, otherworldly vibration. Marcus was led to the altar, where he was tied, more for tradition than necessity, and made to kneel before the assembled tribe. His heart pounded, though he refused to show any fear. He was a soldier after all, and soldiers didn't flinch. S.H. Raza stepped forward, her movements slow and deliberate. She reached down and placed a hand on his shoulder, her fingers like iron, her touch unyielding. She leaned in close, her breath warm against his ear as she whispered, "Do not mistake this for kindness, human. You are here to show your worth." Marcus met her gaze, his pulse quickening as their eyes locked. He could feel her power, her intensity, but he wasn't about to cower before her or anyone else. "I understand," he said quietly, "but I'm not afraid." For a moment, S.H. Raza seemed to study him, her expression unreadable. Then, without warning, she stepped back, and the ceremony continued. The chanting grew louder, the rhythmic sound pulsing through Marcus's chest like the beat of a drum. The tribe's warriors stood in a circle around him, their eyes gleaming with a mix of pride and anticipation. His arms were bound to the stone altar by thick, woven vines that seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. Despite the discomfort, Marcus kept his composure, refusing to show any weakness. He knew this was part of the ritual, but something about it felt off. He wasn't sure whether he was here to prove humanity's strength or simply to entertain these people as a token of their superiority. S.H. Raza stood at the head of the gathering, her imposing figure silhouetted against the setting sun, casting a long shadow that stretched across the stone platform. Her amber eyes never left him as she observed, the flick of her tail betraying a restless energy. He could feel the weight of her gaze, as if she were searching for something within him. The chief spoke, his voice deep and commanding. "We offer this ceremony to the gods, to prove the strength of our people. This human will show us his worth, or he will prove that he is not worthy of peace." Marcus didn't flinch. He had heard this before in different forms, from different species, but somehow, with S.H. Raza standing there, it felt different. She wasn't like the others. He saw the subtle shift in her demeanor when their eyes met, a flicker of hesitation that, though fleeting, spoke volumes. Was it doubt? Was she questioning her people's traditions? It was too brief for him to decipher, but the thought gnawed at him. The warriors began to chant louder, their voices rising to a crescendo as they circled Marcus, their eyes wild and excited. S.H. Raza's gaze remained locked with his, and she stepped forward. The air grew thick with tension, each moment stretching out, filled with anticipation. Marcus held his breath as S.H. Raza's sharp features softened, her eyes scanning his face. Her posture was still commanding, but there was an unspoken tension between them that neither could ignore. She had been tasked with overseeing the ritual, and Marcus could feel the weight of that responsibility pressing down on her. But there was something else, something in her demeanor, that suggested this wasn't as simple as she had anticipated. She leaned down slightly, her breath warm against his cheek. "You think you can handle this, human?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with a challenge. Marcus met her eyes with a calm, unwavering gaze. "I can handle whatever you throw at me," he replied, his voice steady. For a brief moment, he thought he saw something like amusement in her eyes, but it quickly disappeared, replaced by a cool, impassive expression. S.H. Raza stepped back, her movements smooth and deliberate. With a single gesture, she commanded the ceremony to continue, and the warriors advanced. The crowd's chanting grew louder, almost deafening, as the warriors moved in to begin the next phase of the ritual. The first warrior, a massive figure with skin like stone, approached Marcus, his eyes glowing with a predatory hunger. He held a ceremonial blade, its edge gleaming in the fading light. It was not a weapon meant to harm, but to symbolize the tribe's dominance over their prey. Marcus remained still, his muscles coiled like a spring. He wasn't about to make this easy for them, but he knew he had to play along. His hands were tied, his body at their mercy, but his mind was sharp, and he would not be made a fool of. Not here, not now. The warrior raised the blade, and Marcus could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The entire tribe was watching, waiting for him to react. Would he flinch? Would he show fear? Or would he prove his worth? As the blade came closer, Marcus caught a flicker of movement from the corner of his eye. HFY. Her gaze was fixed on him, her expression unreadable. He could sense the conflict in her duty to her tribe, her duty to uphold tradition, and yet the spark of something else, something human, something raw. The blade stopped just inches from his skin. Enough! HFY's voice cut through the air like a knife. The crowd fell silent, all eyes turning to her. Her gaze never wavered from Marcus, but there was something different in the way she looked at him now. It was no longer the cold, distant gaze of a leader overseeing a ritual. There was something warmer, more uncertain. She stepped forward, her eyes locked onto his as she drew closer. "I see no weakness in you," she murmured, so softly that only Marcus could hear. Her fingers brushed lightly against his cheek, a gesture that seemed almost accidental, but sent a jolt of heat through his body. For a long moment, the world seemed to stand still. Marcus could feel the heat radiating from her, the tension between them undeniable. His breath quickened, his pulse racing in his chest as HFY's fingers lingered against his skin, just for a moment too long. The moment was broken by a sharp command from the chief. HFY, the ritual must proceed. HFY's eyes flickered toward her father, then back to Marcus. With a small, almost imperceptible nod, she stepped back and raised her hand to signal the end of the ritual. The warriors reluctantly withdrew, and Marcus was freed from the bindings. The chief stepped forward, his gaze hard and judgmental. "You have shown no fear, human," he said. "But this is not enough. Your kind is weak, fragile. You will prove your worth another way." Marcus stood tall, his chest heaving with the adrenaline of the moment. He hadn't expected this to be easy, but he had passed the first test. And HFY, she had been different. There was something in the way she had looked at him, something in the way her touch had lingered, that spoke of an unspoken connection. But what was it? What was this strange, magnetic pull between them? "Perhaps," Marcus said, his voice steady but laced with a hint of challenge, "we should find another way to prove humanity's worth. Perhaps you should learn more about us before making your judgment." HFY paused, her amber eyes meeting his once more. The flicker of hesitation was back, but it was stronger now, as if she was grappling with something deep inside her. She didn't respond immediately, but her eyes told him everything. There was more to her than the cold leader of her people, and Marcus was determined to uncover what that was. The night was thick with heat and the hum of unseen creatures. The air in the alien city felt oppressive, as though it were holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. After the ritual, Marcus and his team had been escorted back to their temporary quarters, but the silence between him and HFY had grown more intense with every passing minute. She had watched him as he was led away, her amber eyes filled with an emotion he couldn't name. It was nearly midnight when the knock on his door came. A single, sharp rap echoed through the silence, waking him from a restless sleep. He had half expected it to be a messenger from the tribe, perhaps an invitation to a further ritual or a meeting with the chief. What he didn't expect was to find HFY standing in the doorway, her silhouette outlined by the dim light from the corridor behind her. She looked different now, her usual confident demeanor replaced by something softer, more uncertain. Her long tail swished behind her in slow, deliberate motions, and she stepped into the room without waiting for an invitation. The door slid shut behind her with a soft hiss. Marcus didn't rise from his bed, but he studied her with cautious curiosity. "What is it, HFY?" She didn't answer immediately, her eyes scanning the room with a hint of discomfort. The space was modest but comfortable. He had been given basic provisions for his stay. Nothing extravagant, but it was enough to make him feel like he was not entirely a prisoner. Finally, her gaze flicked back to him, and there was something in her expression that made his stomach cringe. "I need to speak with you," she said, her voice low and steady, but tinged with something Marcus couldn't quite place. "Alone?" Marcus nodded, pushing himself up in the bed. He could feel the tension building between them, thick and charged. "All right, talk." S.H. Raza hesitated, her fingers brushing lightly against the fabric of her tunic. "What you did earlier, during the ceremony. You didn't react the way I thought you would. You showed no fear. And yet, when I looked at you, I saw something else. Something I didn't expect." Marcus raised an eyebrow, his pulse quickening. "What did you expect?" She tilted her head, the movement almost feline in its grace. "I expected you to be afraid. I expected you to submit to us, like every other weak creature that has come before. But you didn't." She stepped closer, her gaze never leaving his. "You challenged us. And more than that, you challenged me." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and charged with the electricity of their unspoken thoughts. S.H. Raza's usual confidence seemed to have fractured in some way, and Marcus found himself drawn to her vulnerability in a way he hadn't anticipated. "Maybe I'm not like the others," he said quietly, his voice softer than it had been earlier. "Maybe humans are stronger than you think." For a moment, S.H. Raza didn't speak. She simply stared at him, her eyes wide, as if trying to figure him out. It was clear she was struggling with something deep inside. "Why didn't you flinch?" she finally asked, her voice almost pleading. "Why didn't you beg for mercy like the others? Why didn't you fear us?" Marcus's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "Maybe because I've seen worse. I've faced things that would make this seem like a game." He sat up fully now, his posture open but unwavering. "I don't scare easily." There was a long pause, and for the first time, S.H. Raza seemed uncertain, her usual poise faltering. She took another step forward, closing the distance between them. Her amber eyes were searching his face, as though trying to read him, to understand what lay beneath the surface of this human she had expected to dominate. "Is that it?" she asked quietly, her voice almost a whisper. "You just don't fear us." Marcus stood up then, his chest rising and falling with a deep, steadying breath. The proximity between them was now undeniable, and he could feel the heat radiating from her. His heart pounded in his chest, and despite the strange circumstances, his mind focused on one thing: S.H. Raza. "No," he said, his voice lower now, a steady rumble in the quiet room. "It's not just that. It's you." She blinked, and for a brief moment, he thought he saw a flicker of confusion in her eyes, quickly masked by her natural grace. "What do you mean?" Her tone was almost defensive now, though there was a tremor of uncertainty there. "I mean," Marcus continued, stepping even closer, his voice hushed, "there's more to you than I thought. You're not just some powerful leader. You're not just the tribe's heir. You're someone who's questioning everything, just like I am." S.H. Raza opened her mouth to speak, but Marcus placed a finger lightly on her lips. The soft touch was enough to still her, to quiet the turmoil in her eyes. He lowered his hand, but his gaze remained fixed on hers, his pulse thumping in his ears. "I'm not here to make enemies, S.H. Raza. I'm here to prove that we can be more than what everyone else expects." Her chest rose and fell in rapid breaths. He could see the battle waging in her eyes, her duty to her tribe, her sense of pride and power, and the undeniable pull she was feeling toward him. You should leave," she whispered, but there was no real force behind the words. It was more a suggestion, a plea than an order. Marcus didn't move. Instead, he reached out, his hand brushing the side of her cheek. The contact was gentle, yet it sent a shockwave through both of them, the electricity between their bodies nearly crackling in the air. She didn't pull away. "I won't leave," Marcus said firmly. "Not unless you want me to." The silence between them stretched on for a long time, and Marcus felt the tension building to an unbearable level. She was so close now. He could feel the heat radiating from her, the soft scent of her skin mingling with the air around them. It was intoxicating. S.H. Raz's amber eyes softened, but there was no fear in them. Instead, there was something else, something Marcus recognized as curiosity, as longing. And then, before he could react, she closed the space between them, her lips capturing his in a kiss that was both unexpected and inevitable. The moment was electric, charged with everything they had both been holding back, all the tension that had been building between them since they first laid eyes on each other. The kiss was not one of dominance or submission. It was an exploration, a discovery. S.H. Raz's hands found his shoulders, pressing him closer, and Marcus responded with equal fervor, his hands moving to her back, pulling her against him. When they finally pulled apart, breathless and hearts racing, S.H. Raz's eyes were wide, but there was a new intensity in them. "What are you doing to me, human?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Marcus grinned, his breath uneven. "I don't know, but I think it's just the beginning." The night seems long with anticipation, the sounds of the jungle creeping in through the open window of Marcus's quarters. The air was heavy, thick with humidity, but somehow it felt lighter now, charged with an electric current that neither of them could ignore. The kiss they had shared still lingered, the taste of it on Marcus's lips, the heat of her body seared into his mind. The moment had been intense, raw, and real, but it left him with a sense of hunger he hadn't expected. S.H. Raza stood across the room now, her chest rising and falling with each shallow breath, her amber eyes locked onto his, still wide with the weight of what had just transpired. She had pulled away first, but there was no uncertainty in her gaze now. Her body was poised, tense, but there was something else, a spark of something deeper, something undeniable. "Do you regret it?" Marcus asked quietly, his voice low, but filled with a mixture of curiosity and something more, something primal. S.H. Raza didn't answer right away. She was still processing the sudden shift in their relationship. The usual calm confidence that had marked her every movement was slipping, revealing a vulnerability she didn't often show. "Regret it?" she asked, her voice steady but with a note of uncertainty. I don't know. I don't know what to feel." Marcus stepped forward, closing the distance between them, his heart pounding in his chest. He wasn't sure where this was leading, but he knew one thing for certain. There was no turning back now. "You're not like the others," S.H. Raza continued, her voice soft but filled with that same curiosity. "You don't fear me." Marcus shook his head, his eyes never leaving hers. "I don't fear you, S.H. Raza. And I don't think you fear me either." His voice dropped to a whisper, his hand reaching out to gently brush against her arm, the touch sending a shiver through both of them. "I think you're scared of what this means." She stiffened at his touch, but her eyes darkened with something new, a hunger, an unspoken desire. She didn't pull away, instead taking a slow step forward, closing the final gap between them. Her gaze flicked from his lips to his eyes, and Marcus could feel the heat between them rising. "Maybe you're right," she whispered, her breath catching in her throat as she lifted her hand to touch his chest, her fingers tracing the hard line of his muscles beneath his shirt. "Maybe I'm scared, but not in the way you think." Before he could respond, she stepped closer, her body pressed against his, and her lips found his once more, this time with more intensity, more urgency. It wasn't like before, gentle and tentative, but a searing kiss that left no room for doubt. It was a kiss that demanded to be felt, a kiss that set everything ablaze. Marcus's hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer, feeling the strength in her body, the power in every curve and muscle. S.H. Raza's hand slid up his chest, her fingers moving with purpose, as if she had finally given in to whatever had been building between them. She was still conflicted, still unsure, but the pull of desire was too strong for either of them to ignore now. S.H. Raza broke the kiss, her breath ragged, her lips swollen. "I don't know what you've done to me, human," she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. "But I can't stop it." Marcus's heart raced in his chest as he looked down at her, his fingers gently brushing through her hair, his touch soft yet firm, anchoring her to him. "Don't stop it," he murmured. "Let it happen. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. It was more than just lust. It was a deep, undeniable connection, something neither of them had expected, something that defied their worlds, their customs, their beliefs. S.H. Raza's hand found the hem of Marcus's shirt, tugging it up with an almost desperate urgency, her eyes not leaving his for a second. She paused, her hands resting against his skin, as if trying to memorize the feel of him beneath her touch. "You don't fear me," she whispered again, this time with more wonder than challenge. "I've always been the one in control, but with you it's different." Marcus's hands moved to her waist, lifting her effortlessly. "You've always been in control," he said softly, his lips brushing against her ear. "But that doesn't mean you have to be." With that, he carried her to the bed, laying her down gently, but with a sense of purpose. S.H. Raza's eyes flickered with surprise, but the moment her back hit the soft bedding, she reached for him again, pulling him down into a kiss that was deep and intense, filled with the weight of everything they had been holding back. She tasted like fire, like passion, like something Marcus couldn't explain. There was no fear in her touch now, no hesitation. She was raw, vulnerable in ways that only a few could see, and even fewer could understand. But Marcus wasn't like the others. He had never been one to back away from a challenge. And this was something worth fighting for. The night stretched on, filled with whispered words and soft moans, the world outside forgotten as they explored each other, their bodies finding a rhythm of their own. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual. There was a connection between them that neither of them could deny any longer. As the night wore on, their union became less about desire and more about something deeper, a shared understanding, a bridge between their two worlds. They were not just an alien princess and a human soldier. They were two beings, connected in a way neither could have foreseen. When the first light of dawn broke through the window, casting a soft golden glow over the room, Marcus lay beside S.H. Raza, his arm draped over her, their bodies tangled together in a way that felt completely natural. S.H. Raza stirred, her head resting against his chest, her breathing steady, as if she had found something she hadn't known she was searching for. For the first time since their meeting, she looked completely at peace. "Maybe you were right," she murmured, her fingers tracing lazy patterns on his chest. "Maybe this is just the beginning." Marcus's lips quirked up in a smile, though his heart was still racing. "I think so. But whatever it is, I'm not walking away." And neither was she. The next few days passed in a haze of uncertainty. Marcus and S.H. Raza exchanged few words, each lost in their thoughts, both carrying the weight of the choices ahead. S.H. Raza had withdrawn into herself, her duty to her people taking precedence over the bond they had shared. Marcus respected her space, but he could feel the distance growing between them, like an invisible barrier that neither could cross. Marcus spent his time training, reviewing maps, and keeping busy, but his mind never left S.H. Raza. Every time he thought of her, he felt the pull of their connection, the way she had looked at him that night, vulnerable and unguarded. Yet, as much as he wanted to reach out, he knew she needed time. It wasn't until the third day after their confrontation that she sought him out again. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the jungle as Marcus stood outside, taking in the landscape. He heard the rustle of movement behind him and turned to find S.H. Raza, her expression unreadable, yet there was a sense of determination in her posture. "I've spoken with my father," she said, her voice firm, but there was an underlying strain. "The tribe is growing impatient. They want answers." Marcus waited, his heart pounding. This was it. He could see the decision in her eyes, though she hadn't spoken it yet. "I've thought about what you said," she continued, "about choosing what matters. I've tried to ignore it, to push it aside, but I can't. I've spent my entire life preparing to lead them, to be the one they depend on. But what if what they want isn't what I want?" Marcus took a step closer, his voice soft. "Then you don't have to choose them over you. You have to choose yourself. And maybe I can be part of that choice." S.H. Raza met his gaze, and for the first time in days, she seemed to truly see him. I don't know if I'm strong enough to let go of everything I've ever known." "You don't have to let go," Marcus said, his voice steady but filled with certainty. "You can take your place among them, lead them, but you don't have to sacrifice yourself. Not for anyone." S.H. Raza's eyes glistened, and for a moment, Marcus thought she might pull away, but she didn't. Instead, she stepped closer to him, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for him. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered, the words barely audible in the evening air. Marcus placed a hand on her cheek, his thumb brushing away a stray tear. "You won't. We can find a way. Together." For a long moment, neither of them moved. The weight of her decision hung in the air, but it wasn't the same weight as before. It wasn't a burden. It was a promise of something new, something different. Finally, S.H. Raza nodded. "I choose you. I choose us." A sense of relief washed over Marcus, but it wasn't just relief. It was hope. Hope for the future, for whatever lay ahead. They still had a long road to travel, but now they would face it together. The days following S.H. Raza's decision were filled with tension, but there was a new understanding between her and Marcus. They were no longer just two people from different worlds caught in a moment of passion. Now they were partners, facing the challenges of their shared future together, with both the potential for unity and the looming risks that came with it. S.H. Raza's people were restless. Her father, the chief, had sensed the shift in her, the way her focus had changed. He summoned her for a private audience in the tribal hall, a massive structure carved into the jungle itself, where the stone walls were lined with intricate carvings and ancient symbols. Marcus, though not invited, stood by the doorway, his eyes watching as S.H. Raza entered with her father. His presence wasn't welcome, but he knew that her decision would soon be laid bare. The conversation between father and daughter was intense, filled with sharp words and moments of silence. But through it all, S.H. Raza held her ground. She spoke of her belief that humanity was not the inferior species her people had believed, and that their bond with Marcus was a sign of the changing times. It was a difficult conversation, one that carried the weight of tradition and the future, but she stood firm in her conviction. She didn't want to lose herself to old ways. She couldn't. Hours later, S.H. Raza emerged from the hall, her face resolute but filled with a mixture of relief and sorrow. The old chief had not accepted her decision outright, but there had been no outright rejection either. The tribe would need time to adapt, but S.H. Raza knew there would be more work to do. This was just the beginning. Marcus stepped forward, meeting her halfway. She looked at him, and for the first time, the uncertainty was gone. In its place was something stronger, something that resonated deep within both of them. "I've told him," S.H. Raza said softly. "It's not easy, but it's my choice to make, not his." Marcus nodded, taking her hand in his. "You did the right thing, and we'll face whatever comes next together." S.H. Raza squeezed his hand, a small smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "You'll be by my side, even if the tribe rejects me." "Always," Marcus replied. "Whatever happens, I'm not going anywhere." The next few weeks were filled with quiet moments and difficult conversations, not just between Marcus and S.H. Raza, but also with the tribe. Slowly, word spread, and though there were some who remained skeptical, many began to see the value in the alliance with humans. S.H. Raza's leadership was tested, but the tribe respected her more for standing her ground. And while the road ahead would be filled with challenges, both political and personal, they had taken the first step towards something new. It wasn't perfect, and it wouldn't be easy, but it was theirs, and that was enough. As time passed, S.H. Raza continued to lead her people, but she did so with Marcus by her side. Their bond, once a secret, became a symbol of change, of unity across species, of love that defied expectations. There would be more struggles, more trials ahead, but with each day, they knew they were ready for whatever came next. And as the sun set on the alien world, casting long shadows over the jungle, Marcus and S.H. Raza stood together, their hands entwined, knowing that the future, uncertain and wild, was theirs to shape.